The most terrifying scenes in cinema history weren't acted, but real. Imagine cursed relics unleashing ancient evils, ghostly whispers caught on film, and sets so haunted even Hollywood legends fled in fear. Tonight, we expose the truth studios tried to bury. Iconic classics like The Wizard of Oz, Psycho, and Citizen Kane weren't just filmed on sound stages. They awakened something otherworldly. Studio archives sealed for decades reveal bone-chilling accounts of actors stalked by their own characters, props moving on their own, and screams that weren't in the script. Lights flicker, cameras roll, but when the director yells, "Cut!" Whoa. The horror was only beginning. You've seen the movies. Now discover the real nightmares that haunted every frame. The Wizard of Oz, 1939. The beloved classic, The Wizard of Oz, has enchanted generations with its magical journey to the land of Oz. But behind the Technicolor wonder lies a darker tale that few are familiar with. During the film's production at MGM Studios, multiple cast and crew members reported strange occurrences that couldn't be explained. Judy Garland, who portrayed Dorothy, claimed to hear disembodied laughter echoing through the empty soundstage late at night when she would rehearse her songs alone. The technical crew frequently complained about equipment malfunctions that would occur exclusively during scenes in the Wicked Witch's castle. The most disturbing incidents involved the Munchkin Village set, where several actors reported seeing shadowy figures moving between the miniature houses when no one was filming. One crew member documented in his journal that he had witnessed all the props in the village rearranged overnight, despite the set being locked and secured. When reviewing daily footage, director Victor Fleming discovered unexplainable fog-like apparitions floating across certain frames that weren't visible during filming. The special effects department couldn't account for these anomalies. Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch, experienced the most unsettling phenomenon. After her serious accident where her copper-based makeup caught fire during a scene, she claimed that while recovering in the hospital, she would awaken to find the witch's hat sitting at the foot of her bed, despite it being locked away in the costume department. When she returned to set, Hamilton requested a blessing from a priest before resuming her role. Interestingly, the paranormal activities seemed to intensify during scenes involving the ruby slippers, with lights flickering and temperature drops reported by multiple witnesses. To this day, MGM Studios' archives contain unexplained recordings of a woman's whispers captured between takes saying, "There's no place like home," when no actors were present. Psycho, 1960. Alfred Hitchcock's psychological thriller Psycho revolutionized the horror genre, but what many don't know is that the production itself was plagued by inexplicable events that left even the stoic director unsettled. The infamous Bates Motel set, constructed on the Universal Studios lot, became a hotspot for paranormal activity almost immediately after completion. Security guards reported hearing footsteps and shower sounds coming from the motel rooms late at night when the set was completely empty. Janet Leigh, who played Marion Crane, refused to be alone in her dressing room after experiencing what she described as cold, unseen hands touching her shoulders while she prepared for scenes. The crew would find her script pages mysteriously rearranged each morning, with certain death scenes circled in what appeared to be dried blood. When analyzed, the substance couldn't be identified as any known studio prop material. During the iconic shower scene filming, 3 separate cameras inexplicably malfunctioned in the exact same way, an electrical failure that technical staff couldn't reproduce or explain. Hitchcock himself, known for his pragmatic approach to filmmaking, became increasingly disturbed by a recurring incident. The silhouette of a woman would appear in the window of the Bates house, visible to everyone on set, but when assistants were sent to investigate, they would find the house completely empty. Perhaps most chilling were the phone calls received at the production office from the extension line in Norman Bates's Fruit Cellar set, calls that came through when no one was filming and the set was locked. The voice on the other end was described as an elderly woman whispering incomprehensibly before the line went dead. Anthony Perkins, who portrayed Norman Bates, reported waking up at exactly 3:43 a.m. every night during filming, feeling compelled to check his mirror where he swore he could see an old woman's reflection instead of his own. After production wrapped, Universal Studios attempted to repurpose parts of the set for other films, but abandoned these efforts when construction workers refused to stay after experiencing what they described as a malevolent presence that seemed to follow them home. The original knife used in the shower scene was later stored in the studio's prop department, but was repeatedly found in different locations despite being locked in a display case. The Mummy, 1932. Universal's classic horror film, The Mummy, starring Boris Karloff, is often cited as one of the pioneering monster movies, but the production carried with it a sinister reputation that extended far beyond the screen. The troubles began when set designers incorporated authentic ancient Egyptian artifacts loaned from the British Museum into the tomb scenes. Within days of these artifacts arriving on set, a series of inexplicable events befell the production. The cinematographer developed mysterious hieroglyph-like burns on his hands after handling the camera that had been positioned near a genuine canopic jar. Director Karl Freund reported seeing a dark, sand-like mist forming in the corners of the soundstage that would dissipate when approached. Multiple film reels were found inexplicably damaged, with what technicians described as water damage, despite being stored in a climate-controlled environment. When the damaged sections were examined closely, they specifically contained scenes where the sacred burial texts were being recited. Actors refused to remain on set alone, claiming to hear ancient Egyptian whispers and chanting when no one was around. Boris Karloff's experience was particularly disturbing. During the extensive makeup application process for The Mummy, which took up to 8 hours, he reported feeling as though someone else was controlling his body. Several crew members confirmed that Karloff would speak in an unidentified language during these trances, which linguists later suggested contained elements of ancient Coptic and Egyptian dialects that Karloff had no knowledge of. The actor developed unexplained scarring across his back that resembled ancient Egyptian protection symbols, which doctors couldn't attribute to the makeup or costumes. The film's Egyptian consultant mysteriously disappeared 3 days after warning producers about disturbing the rest of the Ancient Ones through their portrayal. He was found a week later, wandering the Nevada desert, with no memory of how he got there, repeating the same phrase in ancient Egyptian that translated to, "The dead are not to be bound by film." Following the film's completion, Universal executives ordered all the authentic artifacts to be immediately returned after a financial backer visited the set and suffered a fatal heart attack while standing among the tomb props. A journal from an assistant director, discovered decades later, documented temperature drops of up to 20 degrees exclusively in the areas where the artifacts were stored, even during the hot California summer. The Uninvited, 1944. The Uninvited, often considered one of the first Hollywood films to treat ghosts as legitimate supernatural entities rather than parlor tricks, seemed to invite actual paranormal activity during its production. The film, centered around a haunted clifftop house in England, was partially shot on location at a seaside property in California that had its own history of reported hauntings. What began as an atmospheric shooting location quickly became the center of unexplainable phenomena that affected everyone involved with the production. The first incidents were subtle. Actors would complain that their props weren't where they had left them, or personal items would disappear only to reappear in impossible locations, such as locked safes or inside walls. Sound technicians were consistently frustrated by recordings contaminated with what they described as a woman sobbing that wasn't audible during filming. When isolated, the crying couldn't be attributed to any known source on set. Leading actress Ruth Hussey discovered her dialogue written in mirror reverse writing in her script, though no one admitted to the prank. Ray Milland, who played the male lead, became increasingly agitated during filming, confiding in the director that he felt a constant presence watching him, particularly in scenes shot in the home's attic. Milland, known for his professional demeanor, refused to film night scenes alone after witnessing what he described as a figure composed entirely of mist forming at the foot of the staircase. The film's cinematographer captured several unexplainable light anomalies on camera that created a distinct female silhouette when the negatives were developed. Director Lewis Allen attempted to keep the strange occurrences quiet to avoid panic among the cast and crew, but his efforts were undermined when 3 separate members of the lighting department quit after claiming to have been pushed by unseen hands while working near the cliff's edge. The piano used in the film's famous scene, where the ghostly presence makes itself known, began playing the film's signature melody, Stella by Starlight, when no one was in the room. Most disturbing were the multiple photographs taken for publicity purposes that showed a distinct female figure standing by the window of the house's master bedroom, when no actresses were present during the shoot. The property owner eventually refused to allow the film crew back after production wrapped, claiming that the movie had awakened something that had been dormant in the house. Years later, visitors to the filming location reported hearing the film's haunting melody playing from the empty property on moonlit nights. Freaks, 1932. Todd Browning's controversial film, Freaks, stands as one of the most daring and disturbing productions of early Hollywood, but the unsettling nature of the film extended far beyond what audiences saw on screen. Shot on MGM's backlots, the production featured real carnival performers with various physical abnormalities, creating an environment that many studio workers refused to enter. But it wasn't just the unconventional cast that created tension. Unexplainable events began occurring from the first day of shooting. The trouble started when multiple reels of film were found completely exposed, despite being properly stored in sealed containers. When replacement footage was shot, crew members discovered strange symbols scratched into the new film that weren't visible to the naked eye but appeared during development. The film's editor reported that certain scenes would rearrange themselves between viewings, with different takes mysteriously spliced together overnight when the editing room was locked. The circus tent set became the epicenter of the disturbances, with equipment repeatedly failing despite perfect working conditions. Temperature fluctuations were so severe inside the tent that breath would be visible one moment and crew members would be sweating the next. Multiple actors, both the carnival performers and conventional cast members, reported hearing whispering voices between takes that seemed to be coming from empty corners of the set. The whispers reportedly spoke in a mixture of languages, often repeating the film's famous line, "One of us, one of us." Olga Baklanova, who played the trapeze artist Cleopatra, experienced the most frightening occurrences. She reported waking up paralyzed in her bed with the sensation of multiple hands touching her face. After her character's disturbing transformation scene was filmed, Baklanova fell mysteriously ill with symptoms that doctors couldn't diagnose, which subsided only when production wrapped. Director Todd Browning became increasingly erratic during filming, claiming to see shadowy figures moving between the carnival wagons at night that resembled distorted versions of the film's characters. Most disturbing were the reports from night security guards who heard the sound of a carnival in full swing coming from the locked and empty set, complete with calliope music and audience laughter. When investigated, they would find the set completely undisturbed, but unnaturally cold. After MGM executives viewed the first cut of the film, they were so disturbed that they ordered significant edits and limited its release. Those involved with the original uncut version reported nightmares featuring the film's carnival performers, beckoning them to join a spectral sideshow. The original full-length negatives mysteriously disappeared from MGM's archives, with some film historians suggesting they were deliberately destroyed to stop whatever presence had attached itself to the production. Citizen Kane, 1941. Orson Welles' masterpiece, Citizen Kane, revolutionized filmmaking techniques, but behind the innovative camera work and storytelling lurked inexplicable occurrences that troubled the cast and crew throughout production. The massive sets built at RKO Studios to create Charles Foster Kane's elaborate mansion, Xanadu, became the focus of strange phenomena almost immediately after construction. Overnight security personnel frequently reported hearing conversations and arguments echoing through the empty sets, voices that matched no known members of the production team. The troubles intensified during filming of scenes in Kane's vast collection room. Props would mysteriously relocate between takes, with the infamous Rosebud sled repeatedly found in different positions, despite being securely placed by the prop master. When reviewing daily footage, Welles discovered unexplainable shadows moving independently across walls in otherwise perfectly executed scenes, shadows that didn't correspond to any cast or crew members' movements. The director, known for his attention to detail, ordered multiple reshoots, but the phenomena persisted. Joseph Cotton and other cast members reported extreme cold spots on the Xanadu sets that would move around the room, following certain actors as they delivered their lines. Sound technicians were puzzled by recording anomalies where distinct whispers could be heard between dialogue, seemingly commenting on the scene being filmed. When isolated and amplified, these whispers were determined to be in Portuguese, a language none of the cast or crew spoke, but notably the native language of William Randolph Hearst's mistress, Marion Davies, upon whom a character in the film was partly based. Most disturbing were the experiences in the room containing the film's famous Hall of Mirrors sequence. Multiple crew members refused to enter this set alone after experiencing what they described as being watched by hundreds of eyes, despite being physically alone. Cinematographer Greg Toland documented in his personal journal instances where the mirrors would show reflections of people who weren't present on set, visible briefly before vanishing when directly observed. Wells himself became convinced that William Randolph Hearst had somehow cursed the production, particularly after discovering that ceiling panels in Kane's bedroom had been rearranged overnight to form what resembled the Hearst family crest. After the film's completion, sections of the Xanadu sets were stored in RKO's warehouses, but were reportedly blamed for continued strange occurrences, including unexplained fires that destroyed only materials from the Citizen Kane production while leaving surrounding items untouched. Years later, film archivists working with the original negatives reported hearing the distinctive whisper of rosebud coming from the storage canisters when they were opened for preservation work. Sunset Boulevard, 1950. Billy Wilder's film noir classic Sunset Boulevard tells the story of a fated silent film star lost in her own delusions, but the production itself was haunted by unexplainable occurrences that many attributed to real Hollywood ghosts. Shot partially on location at old Hollywood mansions and at Paramount Studios, the film seemed to disturb something in the very foundations of Tinseltown. Crew members frequently reported seeing figures in outdated 1920s clothing walking through the set, vanishing when approached. The mansion used as Norma Desmond's home had previously belonged to a silent film star who had died under mysterious circumstances, and from the first day of shooting, electrical disturbances plagued the production. Lights would flicker or burn out during specific lines of dialogue that referenced death or the decline of silent cinema. Sound equipment would capture inexplicable orchestral music from the silent era, complete with what sound engineers described as the audience reactions from a phantom premiere. Gloria Swanson, who played Norma Desmond and was herself a former silent film star, reported feeling a hand on her shoulder during her performance of the famous "I'm ready for my close-up" scene, turning to find no one there. She later confided in Wilder that she felt as though she was channeling rather than acting in certain scenes, experiencing memories and emotions that weren't her own. William Holden complained of intense nightmares throughout production where he was trapped in a pool, unable to swim to the surface, foreshadowing his character's fate in the film. The most chilling incidents occurred during filming at Paramount Studios' Stage 18, where multiple crew members reported seeing a woman in 1920s evening attire watching from the catwalks above. When security was sent to investigate, they found the catwalks empty, but discovered a single rose of the same variety that adorned Norma Desmond's mansion in the film. Director Billy Wilder, initially skeptical of the reports, became a believer after reviewing footage where a distinct female silhouette could be seen in the background of a shot, despite confirmation that only the main actors were on set during filming. Cecil B. DeMille, who played himself in the film, refused to return for additional scenes after experiencing what he described as a cold presence that followed. Perhaps most disturbing was the discovery by the editing team that certain pieces of dialogue not in the script had somehow been recorded, whispered lines that seemed to comment on the nature of fame and mortality from a voice that matched none of the actors. After the film's release, security guards at Paramount reported hearing a typewriter operating late at night from the now empty set where Joe Gillis had written his screenplay in the story, though no such machine remained there. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, 1962. Robert Aldrich's psychological thriller featuring Hollywood legends Bette Davis and Joan Crawford was already notorious for the real-life feud between its stars, but fewer people know about the unexplainable occurrences that plagued the production. The dilapidated mansion that served as the primary setting seemed to house more than just the film crew, with multiple reports of a child's laughter echoing through empty rooms, particularly the one containing Baby Jane's creepy doll collection. The animosity between Davis and Crawford was legendary, but crew members noted that some of the malicious pranks that occurred on set couldn't have been orchestrated by either actress. Personal items would disappear only to reappear in impossible locations, often damaged or altered. Crawford's makeup would be found smeared after being left unattended, but security footage showed no one entering her dressing room. Davis reported finding her character's blonde wig arranged in her chair as though being worn by an invisible presence. Sound technicians were particularly disturbed by repeated recordings of a child singing "I've Written a Letter to Daddy," the character Baby Jane's signature song, captured during silent takes when no one was performing. These recordings would mysteriously erase themselves when played back for verification. The piano used in the film would play by itself between takes, always the same eerie melody from Jane's vaudeville days. The wheelchair used for Crawford's character became the focus of particularly unsettling events. Crew members reported seeing it move on its own across the set when no one was near it, always toward the staircase, featured in the film's climactic scene. After several such incidents, the prop master took to securing it with ropes between takes. Director Robert Aldrich, initially dismissive of the strange reports, became concerned when reviewing daily footage that showed a distinct shadow following the wheelchair in scenes where Crawford's character was alone, a shadow that didn't match any lighting equipment or crew member. Perhaps most disturbing were the experiences of the actress who played the neighbor's daughter. She repeatedly complained of feeling hands touching her hair when filming scenes in Baby Jane's bedroom, and refused to return to the set alone after discovering her reflection in the vanity mirror didn't match her movements. After production wrapped, multiple crew members reported nightmares featuring an elderly woman and a child holding hands, watching them from the foot of their beds. The mansion used for filming was sold shortly after production ended, with the new owners abandoning it within months, claiming there were too many people already living there, despite the house being physically empty. Night of the Hunter, 1955. Charles Laughton's only directorial effort, Night of the Hunter, is now considered a masterpiece of American cinema. But during its production, cast and crew experienced phenomena that left many questioning what forces they had invoked. The film's dark themes of religious fanaticism and child endangerment seemed to attract unexplainable occurrences from the moment filming began. The production, shot primarily at Goldwyn Studios with some location work on the Ohio River, became known among crew members as Cursed within the first week. Robert Mitchum, who portrayed the murderous preacher Powell, was the first to encounter something unexplainable. Though known for his unflappable demeanor, Mitchum reported waking in the night to find the love and hate tattoos that were applied to his character's knuckles daily somehow appearing on his own hands, only to fade away as he watched. The makeup department confirmed no residue of the temporary tattoos should remain after their thorough removal process. Mitchum became increasingly disturbed by his role, claiming to hear whispers of his character's lines when alone, in his dressing room. The river scenes, where Powell pursues the children by boat, were plagued by equipment failures that technicians couldn't explain. Lights. Most disturbing were the rushes from these scenes, which contained what the editor described as shadow figures standing among the trees along the riverbank. Figures that weren't present during filming and couldn't be explained as crew reflections or equipment. The protective Rachel Cooper reported feeling an oppressive presence in her scenes confronting Powell, describing it as pure malevolence that lingered on set even after Mitchum had left for the day. The children actors became increasingly difficult to calm between takes, claiming to see a tall man with a hat watching them from just beyond the camera's view, though adults could see nothing. The young actor who played John claimed that someone would whisper warnings in his ear between takes, always telling him to run away from the bad man when no crew member was near him. Director Charles Laughton was perhaps most affected by the strange atmosphere. Initially enthusiastic about the project, he became withdrawn and troubled as filming progressed. Assistant directors noted that he would sometimes stop in the middle of giving directions, staring into empty corners of the set, as though seeing something no one else could. Laughton never directed another film after Night of the Hunter, and confided in his wife Elsa Lanchester that something during the production had stripped away his desire to create. Years later, film historians working with the original footage discovered inexplicable cold spots on certain reels that appeared as visible condensation when projected, always forming during Powell's most menacing scenes, as though the film itself had somehow captured the chilling atmosphere experienced by the cast and crew. Rebecca, 1940. Alfred Hitchcock's first American film, Rebecca, based on Daphne du Maurier's Gothic novel, seems to have brought the haunting presence of its never-seen title character into reality during production. From the beginning, the set of Manderley, the imposing mansion central to the story, became a hotbed of inexplicable phenomena that left the master of suspense himself unsettled. The elaborate mansion sets built at Selznick Studios were plagued by cold spots that would move around rooms, following certain actors, particularly Joan Fontaine, who played the unnamed protagonist tormented by the memory of Rebecca. Laurence Olivier reported hearing a woman's whispers when filming scenes in Rebecca's preserved bedroom, though no female cast or crew members were present. The whispers seemed to comment on his performance, sometimes criticizing his delivery of lines addressed to his dead wife's memory. Multiple crew members confirmed hearing a woman's laughter echoing through the set after everyone had left for the day, always coming from the direction of Rebecca's wing of the mansion. The production was plagued by unexplainable technical issues. Film would be found inexplicably exposed or damaged, but only for scenes shot in Rebecca's bedroom or featuring discussions of her character. The elaborate boat model, used to represent Rebecca's final voyage, would be found rearranged overnight, despite being locked in the property department. Most disturbing were the repeated discoveries of a woman's handwriting on script pages and director's notes, elegant script reading simply Rebecca that matched no known crew member's handwriting. Hitchcock, normally skeptical and pragmatic, became increasingly disturbed by one recurring incident, the appearance of wet footprints leading from the set of the boathouse to her bedroom set. These footprints would appear overnight when the studio was empty, and security confirmed no one had entered the soundstage. The water used in these prints was later analyzed and found to contain salt content consistent with seawater, despite the studio being miles from the ocean. Judith Anderson, who played the obsessively devoted housekeeper Mrs. Danvers, perhaps had the most unnerving experience. She reported feeling a presence standing behind her during her monologues about Rebecca, describing the sensation as someone breathing over my shoulder, correcting my perception of her. After filming concluded, Anderson refused to keep any mementos from the production, claiming that something had attached itself to objects from Rebecca's room. Selznick Studios had unusual difficulty preserving the film's original negatives, with archivists reporting that storage vaults containing Rebecca materials would inexplicably flood or develop moisture problems that affected no other stored films. Some crew members later claimed that they had inadvertently brought Rebecca's ghost to life through their detailed production design, creating such a complete world for a character who was never seen that she somehow manifested on set. From phantom figures to cursed props, these tales prove that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. If these behind-the-scenes horrors left you spellbound, you're not alone. Hit like, share this video with fellow film buffs, and subscribe for more untold stories from cinema's shadowy past. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a glimpse into the unknown. After all, the next time you watch these classics, you might just spot something the cameras never intended to capture. Until next time, stay curious and keep the lights on.